Crash and survival. The stars were silent. The black sky held two burning ships falling fast toward an unknown planet. One ship belonged to the Human Alliance, the other to the Zinther Empire, enemies for over 50 years. Commander Rain Carter, a battle-hardened human soldier, woke up in fire and smoke. His body ached. Alarms screamed inside his ears. His ship was breaking apart. He grabbed his emergency pack and jumped out just before the explosion swallowed the rest of the ship. He hit the ground hard, rolling through the dust and burning metal. His vision was blurred and his leg was bleeding, but he was alive. Somewhere, not far from him, the second ship had crashed. Hours passed. The alien sun burned red above. Rain patched his wound and climbed a hill to scan the area. What he saw froze him in place. A tall silver figure stood near the wreck of the Zinther ship. Almost 8 feet tall, with glowing eyes and armor that shimmered like ice. It was Queen Zyra, ruler of the Zinther armies, the one called the Breaker of Moons. Rain had heard stories of her, how she crushed entire colonies with one order. She was alive, and she was looking straight at him. They both reached for weapons, but nothing worked. The crash had fried their tech. There was silence. Then she spoke. Her voice was cold and sharp. "You survived. Impressive." For a human. Rain didn't smile. "I should say the same. You planning to kill me. If I wanted you dead, you would be," she said calmly. They stared at each other for a moment longer, but the sound of wild alien creatures echoing through the jungle made them both look away. They had a bigger problem. This planet was not empty. For the next few hours, Rain and Zyra explored the land carefully and mostly in silence. They had no food, no communication. The oxygen levels were dropping, and dangerous life forms filled the forests. When a large, lizard-like beast attacked, they were forced to fight together. Rain distracted the creature while Zyra used sharp metal from her broken ship to slice its neck. It wasn't graceful, but it worked. Breathing heavily, Rain looked at her and said, "Not bad, ... For an alien, to his surprise, Zyra smiled, just a little. "You bleed easily, human," she replied, looking at his leg. "But you fight like one of us." They found a cave by nightfall. It was cold, but safe. They built a fire from crashed ship parts and rested. For a few minutes, they weren't enemies, just survivors. Rain stared at the stars above. "My people think your kind is heartless." Zyra didn't look at him. "And mine think you are weak and emotional. Are we both wrong?" he asked. She didn't answer. Instead, she reached into a small container from her armor and pulled out a strange silver tool. She touched it to Rain's skin. He flinched. "What are you doing?" "Scanning," she replied. "Your cells, they're unstable, but full of potential." He frowned. "That doesn't sound comforting." She looked at the scan again and then laughed a low, strange sound. "Imagine the idea," she said, mostly to herself, "a human, breeding with a Zinther queen. Absurd." Rain's face turned red. "What?" But she just waved her hand and said, "Relax, I'm not desperate." He muttered, "Thank God." They both sat in silence. Zyra kept staring at the scan. Deep in her mind, something had changed. She had been taught all her life that humans were inferior, too emotional, too soft. But Rain had survived. He had fought beside her. He wasn't like the others, and his DNA. It was reacting in strange ways. Patterns she'd never seen before. Energy levels that matched some of the most powerful Zinther warriors. It was impossible, but it was real. She didn't tell him everything. Not yet. That night, Rain fell asleep beside the fire. His chest rose and fell slowly. He dreamed of his old team, of Earth, of the wars he had fought. Zyra didn't sleep. She sat beside him, staring at the small scan on her tool. And then she whispered to herself, maybe, ... he's not just human after all. Asterisk, she said, it was just a scan. But that was a lie. Morning came quietly. The red sun rose over the alien jungle, painting the cave walls with a soft orange light. Birds with metal-like feathers flew above, screaming strange songs. Commander Rain Carter opened his eyes slowly. His body still hurt from the crash, but something felt different. Queen Zyra was not in the cave. He sat up, alert. His gear was untouched, but her scanner tool was gone. So was her strange container of glowing samples. Footprints led outside, deep into the forest. Rain grabbed a metal pipe and followed. Zyra stood alone in a small clearing. A broken drone from her ship floated nearby, now repurposed into a makeshift lab. Inside it, vials, DNA samples, glowing. Liquids, and in the center, a small orb spinning with Rain's genetic data. She spoke softly into her recording log. Subject 9 Alpha. Human male, codename, Rain Carter. DNA reaction exceeds expectations. Cell repair is faster. Emotional hormone response is ... troubling. But the energy signature is compatible. This may work. She paused. I am not doing this for him. I am doing this for my people. This is not desire. This is duty. She reached into a chamber and pulled out a silver injector. The needle held Zinther reproductive enzymes carefully extracted from her own body. This was more than science. This was rebellion. She was breaking every law of her empire, and she didn't care. Rain stepped into the clearing. What the hell is this? He said sharply. XYR turned, not surprised. A test, she replied. Simply, you are the subject. Rain looked at the floating orb, his DNA exposed and spinning like a map of stars. You said it was a scan. It was, she said. Now it is something more. He took a step back. Are you trying to clone me? No. Cloning would fail. Your body is unique. But your DNA holds something my species lost long ago. She looked at him with calm eyes. You are not just human. You are a bridge. Rain's jaw tightened. A bridge to what? She stepped closer. To a future. One where the Zinther don't die out. One where war ends. One where two species ... become one. He stared at her, shocked. You're insane. No? She said, I am desperate. That night, tension filled the air like smoke. Rain sat on a rock, staring into the fire. He felt used, betrayed, confused. His body had been tested, his cells studied. His DNA was being considered a weapon or a key. He turned to her. So, what exactly do you want from me? Zyra looked at him for a long moment. I want you, she said slowly, to agree. Agree to what? She didn't blink. To begin the experiment. Rain laughed bitterly. You want me to father some alien hybrid? That's not an experiment. That's madness. Not madness, she replied. Evolution. He stood. I didn't survive the war just to become part of your twisted science project. Didn't just survive Rain, she said calmly. You were chosen. By nature, by biology, by fate, maybe fate. Now you believe in fate. I believe in survival, she said. And you? Maybe our last chance. Silence hung heavy between them. Then, out of the darkness, a sudden loud roar echoed from the jungle. A creature, bigger than the last one. Coming fast, Rain and Zyra didn't speak. They ran, the ground shook. Trees crashed down behind them. The beast chased them through the forest, a giant with black skin and glowing red eyes. It smelled blood. They reached a cliff, cornered. The monster leaped. Rain grabbed the metal pipe and slammed it into its eye. Zira jumped onto its back and stabbed deep with a sharp bone blade. The creature screamed and fell off the cliff. They collapsed side by side, breathing hard. Zira looked at him, bloody and bruised. "You say you're not part of this? But you just saved me." He looked up at the stars. "Maybe I just hate monsters." She gave him a small, rare smile. "Then hate me tomorrow. Tonight, we survive." As she walked back toward the cave, Rain stared at her, confused, angry, and strangely drawn in. Something was happening between them. Something neither one understood. But far above, in orbit, a Zinther tracking ship picked up a signal. "Target located. Queen Zyra is alive. With a human order. Terminate. Both. No witnesses." Trust doesn't break in battle. It breaks in silence. Rain poured from the alien sky. Thick, silver droplets that hissed when they touched the ground. Rain sat in the cave, alone, staring at the fire. Queen Zyra was outside, standing in the storm like she didn't feel the cold. Her armor was off. Her back, marked with scars from old battles, glowed softly under the lightning. She wasn't just a warrior. She was something else now, something even she didn't fully understand. Inside the cave, Rain noticed something strange. His medical kit had been opened. One of the vials was missing. He stood slowly. "Zyra." He called out. She didn't turn. "I needed it." "For what?" She was silent. He stepped closer. "You said we were in this together. But you keep doing things behind my back. Stealing samples, running scans, telling me half the truth." Zyra looked at him with unreadable eyes. "I did not lie," she said. "But I didn't tell you everything." Rain crossed his arms. "That's called lying where I come from." She finally turned toward him. "My people, they will kill me for this," she said. "For being with you. For even talking to you. Like this. Then why keep doing it?" he asked. She looked down at her hand, glowing faintly blue. "Because something is happening to me." Rain frowned. "What do you mean?" She held up her palm. "Since our last fight with the creature, my body is changing. My strength, my senses, even my thoughts." He stared. "You think it's connected to me?" Zyra nodded. "I injected a small part of your DNA into my bloodstream. I needed to see what would happen." Rain took a step back, shocked. "You? What? You used my blood on yourself?" "I had no choice," she said. "I had to know if the bonding would work. I didn't ask for your permission. Because I knew you would say no." He turned away, furious. "You think this is science, but it's betrayal." "I think it's survival," she replied coldly. "And you are still alive because of me." That night, they didn't speak. But something else was listening, far above the jungle. A small Zinther scout drone hovered silently, watching them through its red lens. A whisper went across the stars. "Queen Zyra has defied protocol. She is corrupted, infected. Extraction team authorized." The next morning, Rain packed his gear. "I'm leaving," he said. "I'll find a way to send a signal. Maybe someone will come." "You won't survive out there," she warned. "Better than staying here, being your lab rat," Zyra said. Nothing. But when he started walking into the trees, she followed. Hours passed in silence. They reached an open valley filled with glowing blue plants. Strange wind whispered across the stones. Then they heard it, a mechanical click. Rain froze. "Did you hear that?" Zyra grabbed his arm and yanked him down behind a rock from the mist. 3 tall Zinther soldiers appeared. Pure warriors with silver skin and red glowing eyes. Their armor bore the royal mark. They were not here to talk. One of them raised a blade and shouted, "Queen Zyra, you're under command arrest. Surrender now and destroy the hybrid, or be erased." Rain's heart pounded. Hybrid. Were they talking about the experiment, or about her? He turned to Zyra. "Wait, you injected yourself with my DNA? That means?" She nodded slowly. "I am no longer fully Zenther," she whispered. "I am becoming something else." Raised his weapon, a metal spear. "Then let's show them what that something else can do." The Zenther soldiers attacked. Energy blasts tore through the air. Trees exploded. The ground burned. Rain fought with speed and fire. But it was Zyra who changed everything. She moved like lightning, faster than ever before. Her hands glowed. Her strikes sent the soldiers flying. She wasn't just strong. She was evolving. The last soldier fell, groaning. "You are no longer. Queen, you are a curse." Rain helped her up. "You okay?" Zyra's eyes glowed gold for a moment. She looked at her hand, trembling. "I don't know what I am anymore." Rain looked at her, not with fear, but with something new, understanding. "You're not a queen," he said. "You're a beginning." She stared at him in silence, and somewhere deep inside her, in the cells where human and alien DNA were now mixing, something tiny sparked into life. Asterisk's change doesn't ask permission. It just happens. The night was too quiet. Even the jungle seemed afraid. Queen Zyra stood in front of a still lake, her reflection rippling in the dark water. Her glowing eyes flickered. Her breath had changed, slower, deeper, more human. Her heart beat differently now. She placed a hand on her stomach. It was warm, too. Warm, something was growing inside her. Something alive. Rain Carter watched her from behind a tree. He wasn't sure what she had become. A queen, a traitor, a victim of her own choices. All he knew was this planet, this crash, this strange journey. It had connected them in ways he couldn't explain. They had gone from enemies to allies. Now, he wasn't sure what they were. Zyra turned toward him, sensing his presence. Her voice was quiet. "I need to show you something." Back at the cave, she opened a hidden compartment in her armor, a small black pod. She placed it on a flat rock. It opened with a hiss, revealing a life scanner. Zenther technology, rare and forbidden. Rain leaned forward. Inside the screen was a moving image, a small, pulsing form. A heartbeat, to life signs, hers, and something new. His own voice cracked. "Is that?" Zyra nodded slowly. "Yes, it has begun." He took a step back, his mind spinning. "You said the experiment might not work." "I was wrong," she said. "Your DNA activated something in my body, a process we believed impossible. You did what no Zenther male could do in centuries." Rain stared at the scanner. "So ... This isn't just science anymore. It's real." She looked away. "I didn't plan this, but it's inside you now." Zyra placed a hand over her stomach again. "It is more than just a child. It's a fusion, a future. It carries strength from both our kinds." He couldn't believe what he was hearing. A human Zenther hybrid. The very idea was insane. And yet, he could see it, hear it, feel it. It was alive, but they weren't alone. Far above, inside the tracking ship, Zenther officers watched the bioscan. Data in horror. "The Queen has crossed the line. Termination protocol activated. Send the eliminators, no mercy." Over the next few days, Zyra grew weaker. Her energy shifted. She began to dream, not of war, but of Earth, and strange things she had never seen before. She dreamed of oceans. She dreamed of a baby laughing. Rain stayed by her side, collecting food, building protection, guarding her like a soldier guarding his last post. He wasn't sure why. Maybe because she saved his life. Maybe because he saw a new version of her, not a weapon, not a ruler, but something almost human. One evening, she opened her eyes and whispered, "Rain." "It's moving." He rushed to her side. Her skin glowed faintly gold. Her pulse was faster. The baby, if it could be called that, was growing at unnatural speed. "We don't have time," she said. "They'll come for me soon." Rain nodded. "Let them come." Zira looked at him carefully. "You don't have to stay." "I know," he replied, "but I will." She stared at him, this strange man who had once been her enemy, and said nothing. But her hand reached out, gently resting on his, for the first time in her life. The queen of the Zenther was not in control, and for the first time, she didn't want to be. The next day, the ground shook. Rain ran to the edge of the forest and saw it, a massive ship descending from the sky, dark and silent. The Eliminators had arrived. Soldiers bred for one purpose, to erase broken queens and failed hybrids. Rain rushed back to the cave. "They're here," he said. XYR sat calmly, her armor back on. She looked weaker, but her eyes burned with purpose. "We fight," she said. "You can barely move. Then die with me," she said with a grin. "It will be glorious." Rain shook his head. "No, we don't die today. We survive. For it," he pointed at the scanner, still blinking, still beating. The hybrid was still growing, and somewhere deep inside the unborn child's cells, something ancient and powerful was forming. Something neither human nor alien. Something new. Sometimes the enemy isn't the one with weapons. It's the one with orders. Lightning cracked across the sky, but this time it didn't come from clouds. It came from a ship. A massive Zenther warcraft, black as space, floated above the jungle canopy like a shadow stretching across a world. From its underbelly, silver pods dropped one by one, landing with heavy thuds that shook the forest floor. The trees bent, birds screamed. The planet itself seemed to hold its breath. Inside the cave, Zira opened her eyes. "They're here." Rain was already packing supplies. Weapons, rations, anything he could find from the old wrecks. But he knew none of it would be enough. "Who exactly are they?" he asked. She sat up slowly. Her voice was heavy. "They are called the Eliminators. My former guards, my hunters. They are loyal to one command only: purity." Rain frowned. "They believe I have been contaminated." He looked down at her, pale, sweating, hand over her stomach. He wasn't sure what she had become. He wasn't sure what he had become either. But he knew one thing. Whatever was growing inside her mattered. "What happens if they find you?" She didn't answer. Rain stepped forward. "What happens?" "Zira, they will kill me," she said softly. "And burn the child." The ground shook again. Dust fell from the cave ceiling. Outside, the trees were no longer moving from wind, but from marching. 6 tall Zenther soldiers approached. Through the jungle, their bodies were wrapped in obsidian armor. They didn't speak. They didn't breathe. They were genetically altered for one task: remove threats to the Empire. No questions asked. The leader, taller than the rest, held a glowing orb that pulsed with Zira's biosignature. "Target located," it whispered. "Execute." Rain and Zira moved fast. They left the cave, dodging through narrow paths, climbing rocky hills, pushing through sharp alien vines. Zira's strength was fading, but she kept going. Not for herself, but for what was inside her. Rain helped her walk. "We need shelter, weapons, a plan." "We don't need weapons," she said through gritted teeth. "We need a miracle." And then she stumbled, collapsed to her knees. He caught her just in time. "What's happening?" "It's the child," she whispered. "It's evolving." Rain stared at her stomach. Beneath her armor, her skin was glowing in soft golden. Waves pulsing in rhythm with her heartbeat. No, not hers. Something else's. He touched her shoulder. "Can you stand?" She looked at him, eyes flickering between blue and gold. "I can fly, if I must." They found shelter under a broken satellite dish from an old crash site. As Zyra rested, Rain rigged traps, fire mines, sound grenades. Sharpened debris, he used everything the jungle offered. He wasn't a scientist. He wasn't a father, but he was a soldier. And soldiers protect what matters, even if they don't understand it. As night fell, he sat beside Zyra. She was breathing. Slow now, calm, to calm. "You're not scared?" he asked. She opened one eye. "I've faced death before. Not like this." She nodded. "No, this time, death would mean silence. Forever. No legacy, no voice left to speak after me." Rain looked down at her hand, resting on her belly. For the first time, he understood what this meant to her. Not an experiment, not a rebellion. A rebirth. Suddenly movement, the first eliminator stepped into the clearing. Then another. Then 4 more surrounded Rayn stood. Spear in one hand, pulse blade in the other. No fear in his eyes. "Stay behind me," he whispered. But Zyra stood too. Her armor cracked with energy. Her eyes now fully golden. And for the first time, her voice changed deeper, layered, like 2 beings speaking at once. "No," she said. "They stay behind me." She raised her hand. A golden pulse exploded from her body like a heartbeat turned into thunder. The eliminators froze. Sensors fried. Armor cracked. One by one, they dropped to their knees. Rain watched in awe. "You're not just changing," he said. "You're becoming something else." Sira turned to him, sweat dripping from her forehead, but power glowing beneath her skin. "No," she whispered. "We are." And far above the planet, inside the command ship, a high-ranking Zinthar officer watched the failed strike mission collapse. He slammed a fist on the console. "Prepare the planet killer. If the queen won't die, we'll burn the entire world." Some wars are fought with weapons. Others are won in silence. Between one breath and the next. The sky had changed color. Not red, not black. Something else. A strange golden light shimmered across the clouds, like the world itself was holding its breath. Queen Zyra lay in a circle of glowing stones. Deep inside, a cave Rain had sealed with debris and fire traps. Her hands gripped the earth. Her armor was cracked. Her body was shaking. "It's happening," she whispered. Rain knelt beside her, wiping sweat from her forehead. "What can I do?" She looked up at him. Her voice was weak, but steady. "Just don't leave." Outside, the jungle burned. The eliminators were gone, destroyed by her pulse blast. But now, the real threat had arrived. Not soldiers, but the planet killer. A weapon from orbit. Pure fire. A death sentence from the Zinthar High Command. It was charging above them, silently preparing to erase the entire planet. And still, the baby was coming. Zyra screamed, a sound unlike anything Rain had ever heard. Not pain. Not fear, power. The golden glow inside her spread across the cave walls, lighting every crack. Her veins shimmered. Her breath echoed in waves. Rain held her hand. "Stay with me." She looked at him through half-closed eyes. "This child will not be Zinthar, and not human either." Then what? Her lips curled into a faint smile. Something better. Suddenly, her body jerked. The energy in the cave exploded outward. Rain was thrown back. shielding his face from the light. And then silence. Total silence. Zyra's body lay still, her breathing slow. The glow faded, and in her arms, a small shape, a child, but not a normal child. Its skin shimmered between soft silver and warm brown. Its eyes were closed, but energy pulsed just beneath its skin. Its heartbeat was not steady, with syncing with the world around it. Rain stepped closer, his voice a whisper. "Is it alive?" Zyra nodded slowly. Tears fell from her eyes, the first tears of her life. "Yes," she said. "And more than that, it's aware." Above them, the planet killer hummed. Final countdown, 60 seconds. Inside the Zinther control chamber, the officer gave the order. Fire. Destroy the hybrid. End the Queen's mistake. But before the weapon could release its beam, the sky cracked open. A column of golden light shot upward from the cave, tearing through rock, trees, and clouds. A signal, a pulse. A roar dot inside the Zinther ship. Systems failed. Out. Energy cores overheated. The planet killer shut down, all across the control deck. Alarms screamed. The officer stared at the static-filled monitor. What was that? A technician replied with shaking hands. Not a weapon, sir. Not an attack. A signal. From the child. Back on the planet, the baby opened its eyes for the first time. No cry. Just silence. Its eyes glowed. Not gold. Not red. Something new. White-blue light. Pure and ancient. Rain stared. He's beautiful. Zyra smiled weakly. He, Rain, chuckled. Feels like a he. The baby turned toward Rain, fully aware, fully present, and for a second, Rain felt something enter his mind. Not words. Not images. A feeling, unity, peace, power. Understanding. XY Ra sat up slowly, holding the child close. He didn't just survive. He changed everything. From orbit, Zinther ships began pulling back. One by one. They retreated. The high command was silent, because the child had done what no weapon ever could. He had spoken to them through energy. Thought, memory, not, and they listened. Rain looked out at the jungle, smoke rising, light fading, but something new was growing, not just in Zyra's arms, but in the air, the ground, the future. He sat beside her. What now? He asked. She looked at the baby. We protect him from what? From everyone. The baby blinked slowly, gently, and the cave filled again with that soft golden light. Somewhere deep in the galaxy, a whisper began to spread. A child is born, not of blood, but of change. The first of his kind, the last of ours. A new age has begun. The hardest battles are not fought with fists, but with the heart. The jungle was quiet again, not the silence of peace. The silence before a decision. Rain stood at the edge of a cliff, holding a broken helmet in his hand, his own, scorched and cracked. He looked out across the alien sky, where Zinther ships had vanished beyond the clouds. They hadn't fired, they hadn't attacked. Again, because something had changed. The child had spoken, not in words, but in waves of thought, energy, and memory. And for the first time in centuries, the Zinther Empire hesitated. They felt something new. Hope inside the cave. Zyra held the newborn, half human, half Synthor. A life born from war, yet glowing with peace. She rocked him gently, humming. A song she didn't remember learning. Her eyes, once filled with command and power, now held something else. Softness, fear, love, suddenly. The ground trembled. Not from weapons, from arrival. Rain rushed in. Shuttle just landed not far. They're here. Zyra stood, holding the child close. Zinther. Rain shook his head. Both Human Alliance and Zinthor, together. Zyra's jaw tightened. They want the child, she said. Rain nodded. Maybe not to hurt him. Maybe to control him? Maybe worse. Zyra's grip tightened. No one controls what they fear. They destroy it. Minutes later, they stood on the field, surrounded by green mist and fallen leaves. A human general stepped forward. Behind him, a Zinthar elder. Old enemies, now standing side by side. The general removed his helmet. His eyes were cold. Queen Zyra, Commander Carter, you both broke every law of your kind. The elder added, you've created something unnatural. Zyra didn't flinch. He is not unnatural. He is balance. The general's tone sharpened. You know why we're here? Give us the child. We'll take him somewhere safe, protected. Studied, Rain stepped forward. You mean locked up? The elder spoke again. This child is a threat to the old order, to everything we built. Zyra looked at them, calm/steady. Then let the old order fall. The standoff thickened, weapons ready. Hearts racing. Then the baby opened his eyes. Everyone froze. The child raised his hand, still cradled in his mother's arms. And for one brief second, no one could move. Time didn't stop, but thought did. Every person, human and Zinthar, suddenly saw flashes. Visions. Of war. Destruction. Planets burning. But then, peace. Shared cities. Laughter between species. A galaxy without fear. Then the child lowered his hand, and silence returned. The general's lips parted. His voice trembled. I saw Earth green again. The elder's eyes filled with tears. I saw my daughter. She died in battle. But in his vision, she was alive. Zyra spoke softly, but firmly. You came to take him, but he gave you something. Instead, a chance. They left without a word. No fight, no demand, just awe. Later in the jungle, Rain looked at her. They'll come again. Zyra nodded. Not with weapons, with fear, with offers, with promises. Rain asked, what will you choose? She looked down at her child, the boy with glowing eyes and quiet power. Then looked back at Rain. I was a queen. I led armies, burned worlds. She paused, but now it'll be something harder. He raised a brow. What's harder than a queen? She smiled softly. A mother. She handed Rain a small data crystal. This has everything. His DNA sequence, his potential, his story. Why give it to me? Because you're his father, she said. And if something happens to me, he'll need to know who he is. As the sun set, they vanished into the jungle. A warrior, a soldier, and a child who might one day reshape the stars. But far across the galaxy, in secret rooms and silent councils, whispers had already begun. The child lives. The queen chose love over empire, and a human walked beside her. This is not the end. This is the beginning of something greater.